It's Firearms Friday at the Wyoming State Museum here in Cheyenne. I'm Evan Green, the firearms historian for the museum, and I've been working on the collection here for about the last 5 years. We have something in the neighborhood of 400 firearms, so I managed to stay busy. So the topic for this particular episode is Let's Fix Your Gun. I think it's sad somewhat that American society has become infatuated with disposable items, whether it's microplastics in the water supply or overflowing landfills or fast fashion thrown away discarded garments clogging the systems in developing countries. But things weren't always that way. My parents on the ranch came through the Great Depression, and they never threw anything away, which was something of a problem when I had to deal with their estate. But back in the day, particularly with firearms, if you were a long way from a gunsmith or a blacksmith who could work on your firearm, and you had issues with it, you probably needed to depend on your own ingenuity to fix it. This is a Sharps Buffalo rifle. I'm convinced that it was actually in use. For one reason, it has a stamp on the barrel from Walter Cooper of Bozeman, Montana. Cooper in Bozeman was a gunsmith that rebarreled and modified Sharps firearms. And you understand that these, given the metallurgy of the day, these old guns, this one weighs, as it sits, almost 20 pounds. And one of the reasons for this huge, heavy barrel, one was metallurgy at the time needed a lot of material around the bore when you were shooting very powerful cartridges at buffalo. And it was not unusual for, in the heyday of the buffalo hunters, as they practically eliminated that species, to fire 100 or more shots a day. So, again, the barrels weren't all that hard. Even shooting lead bullets, sometimes the rifling would get shot out, and Cooper had a business of replacing those. But what I want to point out is the way that this damaged wrist was repaired. Now, the wrist on these guns and most firearms, the wrist area right here is probably the weakest and the most susceptible to damage. And this wrap has completely covered the damage, so I'm not sure exactly what it was or how badly it was damaged. But it's rawhide. And given the gun and the time, era, when it was used and what it was used for, I'm betting that that's buffalo hide on that gun. So, okay, let's take a little break because I'm going to have to carry this heavy gun out of camera range and we'll look at some others. All right, this is a Marlin model 1894 in 3840 caliber. And though that family of cartridges, 4440, 3840, 3220, were very popular because you could get your rifle or your carbine in one of those calibers, and you could also get your revolver that used that same ammunition. So this is kind of neat. I really admire the ingenuity of the guy. Again, the weak point being the wrist area of the rifle. This one has a crack extending on both sides, but he's used tin or sheet metal of some kind held in place with little round-headed nails to reinforce that area in the gun. And this obviously was fairly well taken care of. There's no really damage to it on the outside. The action still works. The bore is pretty bad. But somebody cared enough about their gun to get innovative about fixing it. And it must have happened fairly early in the life of the firearm because the patina on the metal kind of matches the patina on the rest of the gun. So again, Marlin model 1894 and 3840, fairly innovative way of repairing the damage on that one. The Belgian shotgun is actually a fairly nice one, although they were not very expensive at the time. So made in Belgium, it is 12 gauge, and this, again, in that wrist area was broken. It has some fairly nice checkering, although there's some overruns, and again, it was not an expensive gun at the time, even though it's nicer than some of the Belgian shotguns that were imported prior to World War I, imported to the United States at that time. So this is electrician's friction tape. Back in the day before duct tape, friction tape was the go-to for this kind of work. Again, fairly nice old shotgun, and damaged again at the wrist and fixed with friction tape. So here's one. This one's got other problems. It looks like it was obviously out in the weather for an extended period of time. I mentioned with the previous one that friction tape was go-to. The other, this is probably not baling wire, but the other method of fixing whatever you had was friction tape and baling wire. This is copper wire of some kind, and again wrapped around the wrist. This is a Belgian shotgun. It's what's called an underlever, because this lever here was how you open the action. It is a cartridge shotgun. It is a 12 gauge, and you can see even up here there would have been a pin or a wedge at this point in the to hold the fore end of the barrels, and this does look like baling wire. So whatever you need to fix it, there it is. Belgian shotgun. One more Belgian shotgun that's been repaired. I like this one because it has both friction tape and baling wire, and somebody was diligent enough to actually solder the baling wire in position. So anyway, I was kind of fascinated by the lengths to which people went to keep their firearms functioning and in use when there wasn't a gunsmith handy, or maybe you couldn't afford either a new gun or a trip to the gunsmith. So anyway, if you have questions or comments, put them in the section below. I appreciate you watching and supporting my videos. I did one back in December of last year on trade knives, and while it's not exactly gone viral, it has 30,000 views, which is stunning, because normally the ones I do on firearms, I have a small but loyal group of subscribers and supporters, but usually my firearms videos run between 350 views to maybe 1,000. Some get over 1,000 if it's a popular firearm and the algorithm works. But I was just stunned by the views on the knife videos. And one of our curators said, well, everybody and their brother out there is on YouTube talking about guns, not so many about knives. So I wish we had more knives I could talk about. Anyway, thanks for watching.